What is up guys, 70 Savage here. Today is an exciting day. We are going to install some CR Laurence windows for our Mercedes Sprinter. Pretty stoked. Alright, so when you get the windows in the mail, they look something like this. This one's going on the sliding passenger door. It is an identical process, almost even identical window for the driver's side front window. Not the front window, but the one directly behind the driver's side window that you look out of while you're driving. I don't know how else to explain it. That was pretty bad. But you'll see once I start installing this stuff. So you open the box here, and there are 3 parts that you get. It's super simple, extremely well engineered. So I'll just go over the 3 parts that you get. You get a bag of screws. Not too exciting. You get a frame. This goes inside your Sprinter and helps attach the window from the inside of the Sprinter to the window, which is pushed in from the outside. We'll go over how this works once we start installing it. And then finally, the exciting part, you get the window itself. I chose to get the ones that flip out so that in the rain I can still get some airflow in the van. But it works exactly the same way as the windows that are sliding. So this tutorial should be good for pretty much any CR Laurence windows that you're going to install, with some slight quirks based on the actual window you chose. Alright, so today we are installing the window that goes on the sliding door. The CR Laurence windows look and fit as if they're OEM windows, and they fit right in the window indent that you see here. That being said, we're not going to cut that big of a hole. I'll show you the size hole that we're going to cut from the inside. Alright, so this is specific to the cargo side window installation, so if you're not installing your window on the cargo sliding door, you can ignore this step. But the cargo sliding door has these little steel spots for the paneling to clip in, the default paneling they give you. You're going to want to pull these out. Alright, now that's all done, we have ourselves a clean place to start putting our center punch in and making indentations around the inside so that we can go from the outside and use our jigsaw to cut the hole. Alright guys, so I'm going to demo the first couple for you here. I just got this center punch at my local hardware store. You just want to make sure to get one that's has a pretty precise tip, not one of them that has a really blunt tip, because you need pretty precise holes from the outside. So I'm gonna put my knee pads on and I'm gonna get started. If you're not a giant, you don't need knee pads, but unfortunately I am. So, all right, line that up nice and straight. And you want to give it a couple good whacks. You need to hit it fairly hard to be able to see it from the outside, but to get the right amount of force that you need to hit it with, start soft in a spot that doesn't matter, and then go look outside and see if you can see the indentations. If you can't, hit it a little bit harder, and then once you get the pressure right on the practice spots that aren't the actual outside of the window, then start going around and making your marks on the outside of the window. Alright, let's go see what it looks like from the outside. You can see there's slight little awl marks for every single little hole that I punched. Get out of here, Shadow. So around the corners I did a lot of holes. Around the straight lines, not so many. And yeah, that's what it looks like. So the next step, we are going to trace this line out with a Sharpie. All right, so we want to take our Sharpie. I use these construction specific ones made by Milwaukee. We want to take the Sharpie and we want to draw a line around all of the indentations that we made with the center punch. So for the straight ones, you can use a long ruler or a straight edge. For the curved ones, you really just got to do it by hand. I'll show you once we get a little closer to that. We're going to go ahead and start with the straight line. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys how to draw the curve here. You really just gotta take your time and do it by hand. There's not really any better way to do it. Hopefully you've made your marks close enough to each other to where you can get the curve drawn with relative ease. All right, looks pretty good. Those are the two components that you guys are gonna need to know, straight lines and curved lines, to finish this guy off. For the rest of it, I'm going to speed up the footage. Alrighty, so we have our path for the jigsaw drawn out with a Sharpie. Overall, it's pretty good. You want to really take your time. I'd say this just probably took me 20 or 30 minutes to get right. And you can see all the little center punch holes that we made were just connected. And curves look surprisingly good. So before we actually pull out the jigsaw and cut a hole in the side of our van, there's a couple steps that I take to ensure that sawdust doesn't stick around in the bottom there and start to rust. So the first step that I haven't actually seen many people do is actually tape the cavities. You can see there's like a little tape bridge. Anywhere there's a hole directly up into the window. So there's another one in this corner as well. The corners are the biggest spot. There's also a couple small ones. What you have to do is essentially go underneath the window that you're about to install and just look up and see where the holes are that go from where you're gonna cut and where the sawdust can fall into the bottom. It's much trickier on this side with all the electronics here. It was a lot easier on the driver's side where I could just tape directly underneath there. But it did catch a whole bunch of sawdust, so highly recommend doing that. Okay, the second step in prepping for the jigsaw is taping around the outside of the perimeter that you traced out with the Sharpie. As you can see, it's not very exact, it's not very close, but the whole point of this is so that the foot of the jigsaw doesn't scratch the metal while it's going around. The most important parts are up above this ridge right here, and also on the side of this ridge right here, because those are the only two spots, as you can see, that aren't going to be covered by the window when we're done. So definitely tape these ones up good, but you want to get everything just to make sure you're not scratching your paint. All right, I lied. There's a third preparation step that we need to do with tape, and that is put that same tape on the bottom of the jigsaw. Make sure this one's really flat and has no wrinkles in it. This is going to serve the same purpose of preventing this foot from scratching the outside of the van. I'm using these blades. They're Bosch blades. Let's see if I can get to focus. Let's see, what's the numbering here? T118A. They were labeled as thin metal cutting blades, not very thin cutting metal blades, but thin metal cutting blades. And they do a really good job at just slicing through the side of a van. So we're on the inside of the van here. What we're gonna do here is use a drill to create a hole that we can stick our jigsaw into and have as a starting point for the jigsaw blade to start making a cut here. So I'm gonna pick a spot, I'm gonna cut this way, like that. I'm gonna pick a spot that's kind of away from one of these ribs so that I can get the jigsaw oriented down along the line that I'm cutting, and then I'll come and counter with one of the ribs. So something right about here. Sounds good. All right, that was pretty hard to do one-handed, but we got ourselves a hole. At this point, the next step is going ahead and cutting a massive hole in the side of our brand new van. All right, we're about halfway through. You can see the hole that's cut right here. But what I started to notice, and what you'll start to notice too, is that as you're cutting, this thing starts wobbling and it causes a lot of problems. So we're still at the same spot here, same amount has been cut, and I've just reinforced the dangling metal by taping it to the part that we're not cutting. Will the painter's tape save the day, or will it come unstuck, like every other time I use painter's tape? Well guys, good news is we got a hole. Bad news is, unlike he probably predicted, or like he probably predicted, this thing fell straight out when I was done cutting it, and thankfully it fell to the inside of the van, and I don't care about getting scratched up too bad because I still have to cover the floor. But the painter's tape did not hold whatsoever. Those two tall ones just straight up tore, so learn from my mistakes, use better tape. We have ourselves a pretty good hole here. The cuts are all pretty straight. I'm pretty happy with this. You can see the lines. They look pretty good. Shiggity diggity. It is now time to file this down and cover it with some rust proofing. Take yourself a file, or if you are lucky enough to have one, an angle grinder, and just grind down the edge all the way around so we can have a nice surface to apply our rust proofing paint to. So once you are done sanding down the sides and you make sure that the window fits dry, go ahead and put a small coating of Rust-Oleum, or rust proofing paint, along the edges of your cutout. I forgot to turn the camera on while I was doing it, but you can see there's a slight little layer there of Rust-Oleum. That's all you need. Cover the bare metal all along the outside perimeter. After that, you gotta wait for it to dry. Alright, so once your Rust-Oleum has dried, you can go ahead and place your window from the outside into the hole here. You want to place it in there without the steel connector that goes onto the backside, just the window itself. Okay, so now you want to take the steel frame piece that they gave you, and you want to kind of place it up against the window so that the inside of the first lip is actually around the window, and the back lip is touching the metal of the van. The target for your screws is going to be this little channel right here. That's where your screws are going to go from the holes that are in the frame into the window itself to clamp it against the wall of the van. All right, so when you first hand tighten the screws, you're gonna see that there's a massive gap, and the window is definitely not yet considered complete. That's what the gap looks like. It kind of sticks out. So our goal is to tighten them down. I'm gonna use this torque wrench and get that window nice and flush up against the van. Alrighty, so the installation is 100% complete. As you can see behind me, we have the CRL windows and they are looking good. Key takeaways here is actually going back a little bit on what I said earlier. Cut the holes a little bit, cut the window cutout a little bit bigger than the window, which makes it easier to stuff in and means you have to do less grinding on the outside to make the window fit the first time. Also, however the window lines up when you push it in is how it's gonna look when it's done. It does not balance itself out. This one, you can see it's just slightly canted this way a little bit. What can you do? Learn from my mistakes. This one over here looks pretty good though. So we got double windows. These things lift out and I'm pretty stoked. One question that I might get and I want to answer now is, did you fill the holes with any adhesive or did you use any adhesive at all? No, I did not use any adhesive. These things are definitely going to be watertight. If these things aren't watertight, I don't believe in the laws of physics. Also, unless you're putting adhesive right under where the rubber seal is, you kind of want, you don't want to trap water in any amount of distance in between there because it's just going to collect and rust. Water is supposed to come into the sides of these doors, believe it or not, condensation as well as water that's kicked up from the road, and sometimes there's even little holes like that Mercedes puts in the vehicles. You can see at the bottom of these panels that there are drain holes. So I chose not to use any adhesive, hoping that the seals themselves would be tight, and I didn't want to trap any additional water if they weren't. If the seals aren't tight, I'm going to fail fast and fail loudly and be able to fix that much quicker than if water's building up and then in 3 years I see rust. So overall, really stoked. Hope you guys like how they look. Thanks for tuning in. So great news, my OCD took over and the slight misalignment that I showed in the previous video, I actually addressed. So I pulled the window back out, I unscrewed the backing bracket, and what I did was I pushed the window upward, I pushed it up so that it fit as high as possible on the hole that was cut out. I taped it, this time not with painter's tape, with packing tape to the top so that it was fixed in the top position. And then I went back inside and screwed it in. So now you can see the gap on the bottom resembles the gap on the top and everything's straight. Super stoked. Also, they're both flush with the sides. OCD approved. I fixed this one too. So, yeah, the cool thing with these and the cool thing about not using adhesive is you can just pull them out, put them back in until it looks right to you. So, thanks for tuning in.